Good morning, everyone. It's Peter with Straight Joe Coffee here, and today I'm going to talk about a question I hear a lot. And also stay tuned to the very end because I have an important announcement to make if you want to follow us and keep track of where we're at. The question is, what has more caffeine, a light roast or a dark roast? And the answer most people assume naturally is a dark roast, right? Because they think a dark roast is stronger and stiffer and it's going to have more caffeine. But if you've ever read or heard anything about it, you probably learned that a light roast has more caffeine. Well, which is true? The answer is neither is true. They have the same amount of caffeine unless you're roasting very dark, because the caffeine doesn't burn out of the bean unless it's a very, very dark roast. And the reason people will say that a light roast has more caffeine is because they say the more you roast a coffee, the hotter and the longer it roasts, the more you're cooking the caffeine out of the coffee bean. That's only true if it roasts very dark, due to the temperature at which caffeine starts to cook out of a bean. So if you've got a light roast or a medium roast or a dark roasted coffee, they probably have all the same amount of caffeine per bean. Per bean is the important part, because the real answer is this: it depends on how you measure your coffee when you brew it. People will measure their coffee one of three ways. One, they just dump some in their coffee filter or French press or whatever. The second way is you either use a spoon and measure out teaspoons, or else you use a scale. I use a scale. Most people I talk to use spoons. And the reason that matters is because two things happen whenever you roast a coffee bean. As you go from raw to light to dark roast, one is you're cooking some weight out of the bean. Water weight comes out as steam, and your bean weighs less the darker it roasts. And the other thing is your bean expands. So your bean is actually bigger the darker it roasts. And so it's a lot less dense. It's bigger and it weighs less than a light roasted bean. Which means if you have X amount of beans that fit in a teaspoon, you're going to have more in a light roast and fewer in a dark roast. Suppose you grind it up and you have the equivalent of 5 beans. You have a light roast and you have about 5 beans that fit on your teaspoon. Well, you might only have 3 or 4 beans that fit if it's a dark roast. So if you have 2 teaspoons of coffee, you're brewing fewer beans if it's a dark roast. And so you'll have less caffeine if you're measuring with a spoon and you're measuring a dark roasted coffee. On the other hand, if you're measuring by weight, you'll have fewer beans per gram if it's a light roast. You take more beans to equal the same amount of weight if it's a dark roast. And so the answer is this: if you use a spoon to measure your coffee, you have more caffeine in a light roast because you're using more beans. If you use a scale to measure your coffee, you have more caffeine in a dark roast because you're using more beans. That's the answer. Depends on how you measure your coffee when you brew it. Now, the important announcement is we're getting rid of our Facebook and Instagram accounts because social media is for the birds. But YouTube is not for the birds, and email isn't either. It's for non-flying creatures. So be sure to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, and also go over to straightjoe.com and sign up for the email list if you haven't already. And share this video so that people will know that you won't be finding us on Facebook or Instagram anymore. And with all the time we save by not doing social media, we'll be able to put better quality and more videos out. I want to do more tutorials and just general information and educational kind of coffee videos. And We'll also be sending out more emails, so you can follow sales and updates from Straight Joe Coffee. And also, I'm planning on having a little more time to maybe groom my beard a little bit more, a little better. So everybody should be happy about that too.